we are bringing here the wealth of some years of work and some years of work to come. The Fetzer Advisory Council started working on governance and forgiveness 3 years ago. We have Albi Shihab, who is now prepared for who is the chair of this advisory council, and help shepherd the process. We have Dan Philpott, who is one of the conveners, and Ed Quico, that I don't see at the moment. Oh, here we are. Ed Quico is here. He's the other convener of the group. So we are delighted that together we were able to shepherd this effort with a very diverse group of enterprises seeking to understand better the relationship between love, forgiveness, and governance. It's a fairly new area, and this is why we are delighted that Georgetown accepted to be part of this conversation and this unusual conversation. But as I said, we really would like to engage with the material and the presentation. So after each presentation, I will ask the audience, as we did yesterday, to share a few insights about what was said. What I want to do through that exercise is to make sure that when we hear somebody, we really hear somebody. That we try to pay attention to what is said. So be ready after each presentation to have this moment in which we will present. We will present in the order in which the programs speaks. So we will have Dr. Alwi Shihab first, and we are fortunate that Minister Said, Dr. Said, is coming from Malaysia, and so they will speak together at the beginning, and we will have then Monica and Michal together, coming from Poland on a program on Solidarność, and then we will have Borislava Manojlovic that will speak last this morning. I am delighted personally to be moderating this panel because I've been connected to all these 3 projects, very much so. And I really feel that what is happening here, as I said, is the opening of a conversation. So, Dr. Shihab, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Andre. I'm really delighted to be here today to report to all of you what we have been doing with regard to the project executed by the Fetzer Advisory Council on Governing Professions. As we all know, that the purpose of this research is to promote awareness of the power of love and forgiveness by eliciting examples, lessons learned, and good practices from the stories and experiences of the leaders that I was interviewing. Through the interview, we can elicit and generate insightful ideas of OIC leaders, among them His Excellency, former Foreign Minister, former Justice Minister, former Defense Minister, with all his experience, and he is going to talk to us in a minute. As we know, OIC leaders that have been at the forefront of various political processes in their countries, we will gain insight into their views about the importance of love and forgiveness, not only amongst the influential interviewees, but also wider audience to which the result will be presented. It goes without saying that the Organization for the Islamic Cooperation will provide large and diverse, yet coherent enough space for exploring practices of forgiveness and love that could bridge division and promote peace and solidarity among nations. For this research, I have conducted interview with 8 leaders. 5 of them are of Arab leaders and 3 non-Arab leaders. The Arab leaders, I will later on identify each and of individual, and I will quote some of their few and insightful ideas with regard to our project. Even though they came from a different geographical location, ethnicity, and background, but I noticed that they share the same view that their upbringing and social environment had been a significant impact on their attitude and their daily behavior. And of course, in the context of our research, their attitude towards love and forgiveness when they were so powerful in their position. And we will later hear from His Excellency Bapa Tan Sri Hamid Albar, Sayyid Hamid Albar. So we take the opportunity to get the most of what he would say for our for the enrichment of our research in the later days. Let me try to present some quotes from everyone that I have conducted interview with regard to our project. And all of them share the same view, their high appreciation to Fetzer Institute, which bring this notion of awareness or the power of love and forgiveness in our changing global environment. Let me start with very interesting foreign minister, Muhammad Jawad Zarif, Iranian foreign minister, who is still holding the position. He said, "I believe all civilization have human assets, and if they go back to their roots, they will find very similar lessons. Although he doesn't think that his understanding of love and forgiveness is based on Islam alone." It means that all civilization, as he said. "I think," he said, and I'm quoting, "that our humanity is much deeper than the divisions that divide us. Realities may require you to take political decision and political position, but you need to have that forgiveness in your heart to be able to survive yourself, to live with yourself." The second interview was with His Excellency Muhammad bin Hamad al-Rumhi. Al-Rumhi became Minister of Oil and Gas for the Sultanate of Oman for many, many years. I think it's over 20 years, and still holding his position up till now. According to him, people need to understand each other, respect each other, allow each other the freedom to think for themselves. Fundamental basis of love is love for your neighbor. Such love manifests itself in respecting the other's opinion, even if one doesn't agree with it. He said, in the early 70s, there was separatist movement in Oman. Our head of state at that time asked them to join in our reconciliation of the country, rather than fight each other. It was important, he said, to work together, not against each other. Abu Bakr al-Kirbi is the foreign minister of Yemen. Al-Kirbi provided examples of the practices of love and forgiveness in Yemeni government. According to him, the important thing about reconciliation in any community is that it has a predominant effect on attitudes. It tends to reduce the attitude of hatred and promotes forgiveness for the mistakes that people have made. He underlines that as more people move away from personal aspiration and foster an attitude of reconciliation, forgiveness and love for each other, the more they succeeded in saving their country from war. Muhammad Maudi Kefi, he is a retired diplomat and became Tunis foreign minister. Actually, yesterday we had the opportunity to get his long remark, but let me also quote here that Dr. Kefi said that he first drew inspiration of love and forgiveness from the Prophet of Islam. He points out, as soon as Muhammad, the Prophet, entered Mecca, the first thing he said is, go free the people who tortured, harassed, and killed the first Muslims. Kefi further said, Prophet Muhammad did not take revenge over Wahshi, the one who killed his uncle, Hamza, and did not punish Hind, who ate the liver of his uncle Hamza. Kefi underlined that Prophet Muhammad embodied love and forgiveness, and that his exemplary lifestyle and practices need to be emulated. Sayyid Hamid Ja'far Al-Bar, who is sitting next to me, allow me to quote some of your words, Excellency. According to him, the importance of love and forgiveness was something that was instilled to him first and foremost by his father, who, as a teacher, had firmly believed that learning such important ideals start in the house, which later can be translated into other environments. He also said that love and forgiveness played a vital role in his post as a judge. We will have an elaborated explanation and insights from he himself. I'm not going to elaborate what I prepare for his quotes. Ahmad bin Muhammad Al Salim, he is the Under Secretary of Minister of Interior, Saudi Arabia. According to him, it is good for anyone to have in his heart love and forgiveness. Islamic belief says that we should love all people. We should love each other, and we have to live with each other in peace, regardless of religion and ethnic background. These are the Islamic laws. Salim said that a person has to have charisma to be a leader. But moreover, a leader should have affection in his heart. Dr. Surin Pitsuan, former Minister of Foreign Affairs of Thailand and Secretary General of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations. According to him, if a person makes a mistake, you can't discard him or her. Everyone deserves a second chance. They just need motivation and support from the leaders. He also underlines, when you approach your job from the perspective of love, care, and forgiveness, you can't go wrong. The last, Amr Mahmoud Musa, former Foreign Minister of Egypt and Egyptian presidential candidate. He drew inspiration about love and forgiveness from religious leaders like Sheikh Muhammad Abdu, the very well-known reformist in modern Islamic history. He called for tolerance for all citizens, regardless of religion, color, or geographic location. Musa maintained that love and forgiveness in governance are positive goals that we should join hands to promote in our societies. The promotion for forgiveness is an expression of love and a tool for effective management. He said, at the peak of the Syria crisis and the subsequent call for military intervention, Musa cautions, the Middle East cannot afford another war. These are the quotes, and I hope you will find the whole transcript in the website of Fetzer later on when...
Seton Hall University.
Yeah. So thank you so much for your patience, and let us follow His Excellency, I think, the second, yeah. Please, the floor is yours.
Dr. Shihab, we will hear from Dr. Albar Jawad before we have our little moment to reflect. But I think that it's important to see that this is one project, is OIC leaders thinking about love and forgiveness. And this is a very unusual project because it's very rare to have a former foreign minister of a country as important as Indonesia going around knocking at doors, and saying, can we speak about love and forgiveness in governance? This is a very unusual conversation to have, so we're very grateful, and very grateful both of you to participate.
Okay. Thank you, Andre. And thank you to Alwi Shihab, my friend, my colleague, my counterpart, who somehow or other have dragged me into this project. So when I like to repeat what I said yesterday, until now, when I mentioned that I'm going to attend discourse on the subject of love and forgiveness, it is well understood. So love and forgiveness, that's very good. Then when I say governance, I say, what has it got to do with governance? So I think that was the very, when Alwi came to see me, I thought, he said, I'm going just to have a short interview with you. I said, that's fine, I will give you. And we ended up with 2 hours. So because he was quite penetrating in his questions, and I find difficulty to relate love and forgiveness to governance. So after talking to him, then I start to construct. I have to construct the whole thing. It's different when you are talking about concept. when you're talking about values, and when you want to apply it. You have never thought when you do something, you relate it to love and forgiveness, because it is an intrinsic value inherent in a person. Then only your decision will be full of passion for humanities. You think about other people, the effect on other people. So I think I'm really grateful to Alwi for opening my eyes on a subject that has always been with me. And also to Fetzer Institute for undertaking this. I say, why such an institute take this subject? But I think we have been actually very serious in our discussion. So I'm going to bring it down to I think a more practical level, how people look at the subject before I relate some of my experiences. So I like to start with what is sung in a very famous song. I can't remember, but about love. The best thing in life is to love and be loved in return. So in this one, it is important to me in governance, because governance is a reciprocity. When you exercise power, you exercise authority. It's a reciprocal process. The leader or person who governs does not do so in order to make himself happy. There is a beneficiary to it. There is a recipient to it. So you must be conscious and be aware of it. So that's very good. And someone else said, it is better to have loved and failed and not to have loved at all. This is also a famous, all these famous quote, I get it from my wife. Is it I think I would now like to say that, you have to look at love and forgiveness at the individual level. When Alwi interviewed me, I said my father, my mother, because in the house is the first place that you govern. I come from a family of 12. My mother didn't go to any formal school. My father was a teacher. Every time we quarrel, it's always my mother that will play as the role of an arbitrator. My father would play the role of a disciplinarian. So because of that, there is a balance. I always look at life as creating equilibrium between extremism and moderation. So if we can strike a balance, then we will be able to achieve a better insight. So in order to change, I look at myself, muhasabah, that is look oversight internally. So that's how I started moving from one another. Then as I grow and looking at Malaysia as an example, in 1957, when we became independent, I think even the British then thought that we are going to be one of the failed states because of the composition of the ethnic composition, the cultural composition, and the religious composition. And we all have lived in separate compartments. We do not mix with each other. You see the Indian at the estate, the Malays at the rural areas, the Chinese at the peripheries. So it's definitely a formula for a failed state. But because we are so confident in our struggle for independence, sometimes my Indonesian friends make joke about us, because we do not fight with bloodshed in order to achieve independence. We achieve independence through diplomacy and negotiation. So you see, we begin with love and forgiveness from the start. At one time when we look at the club that was open only for British expatriate, they say Asian and dogs are not allowed. I mean, I'm not saying this just for the sake of saying it, but that was never an impediment or an obstacle for us to create hate or anger. Instead, when we became independent, the first thing we did was to make sure that we follow the British system of civil service. Our civil service, our governance are all British, our law are common law based, and we also gave a gift to the British for giving us independence. A fantastic, beautiful residence for the first British High Commissioner. That's, I think, is a demonstration of beyond, there is no hatred, there was no anger. So how do we create the symbolism? Now I'm talking about, I just want to go through the symbolism. The symbolism is, yes, we are disparate, we are different, so we have the symbolism of the country, unity in diversity, as our motivation to move forward together, that we will swim or sink together. There is no way one feels superior or feel better than the other. So that's how we started. We moved from that to later on to Bangsa Malaysia, one Malaysian race. And now we are already, under the current leadership, is one Malaysia. That's how we have progressed so far. But I want to give you my experience. When I became a magistrate and a president of a middle court, my function is to deal with criminal as well as civil case. One criminal case, I have to make sure that my judgment is based on beyond reasonable doubt. That accused beyond reasonable doubt. Beyond reasonable doubt is subjective. Every time I pass a sentence, I question myself. Am I making the right decision? Am I being just or fair to the accused? Have I heard the evidence and weighed the evidence properly? But my consolation is that if my decision is wrong, there is a higher body to look at my decision. So, I mean, we need all the time check and balance. If we don't have a check and balance, we always think that we are right all the time. So, when it comes to and I faced a case where a juvenile was charged for murder. When the juvenile was charged for murder, there is no precedent. My predecessor decided, since there is a juvenile involved, he sent it to the High Court judge to hear the case. He said this is not within the jurisdiction of a juvenile court. The sentence also is not within the sentence of a juvenile court. Let it go to the High Court. But the High Court decided to send it back to and ask the juvenile court to, I was the juvenile court chairman. I thought I was going to hear the evidence. But instead of that, they decided to plead guilty. A young man, I was only less than 30. I do not know what to do. I said, if without feelings, I can say I would put him to the worst type of punishment. But I went to see a High Court judge. I said, I do not know what to do with this one. Can I send it up for sentence? Because I don't have the power to sentence the person for life. Because juvenile, we can't sentence to death. Because our sentence is for murder is death. So then the High Court judge said, you shouldn't be asking me this question because the case may come up for appeal. And you should not prejudice me with that type of... But then his advice, this is where I think experience, wisdom is important. He said, I will not give you the direction how you should sentence, but I will ask you, what would you like to do? He didn't answer me, asked me what I would like. So I said, this is what I would. He said, most probably I will do the same. He didn't give me the answer. He still said, most probably I would do the same. So giving me the opportunity to decide on my own. So that's in respect of that. As a banker, I related yesterday, as a banker, I've always thought that the best thing for us to do to show our love and forgiveness in governance, to show that we exercise power and authority with compassion and mercy, is to reschedule loans if it is possible, to forgive interest if it is possible, so long as you can get the principal sum. But this is not necessarily prudent banking. I think I was told that. I was told yesterday. I was told yesterday that in business, it is neutral of value, but my upbringing says that everything to make us human has got to be attached with value. Your value to what you consider as right, what you consider as wrong. It is an important factor that one has to look at. It's the same thing when I became minister. I became cabinet minister for 20 years. People, I was the longest serving foreign minister of Malaysia. They said, how did you survive? Alwi didn't last very long. Because the job of a foreign minister, I said, as a foreign minister, diplomacy, you always serve king and country. In our case, because we are a monarchy, constitutional monarch system, we serve king and country. What do I do to make me last that long? Malaysia is always active on the regional and international front. Whenever my leaders get involved in controversies, or whenever we have to take very difficult position, different from the big powers, but out of principled position, I make sure as a foreign minister that I do not cut off the relationship with the country where bilaterally we are not so good. There are problems. Because I believe that if we take a position at a multilateral level, that position at a multilateral level should not jeopardize our bilateral relationships. Yeah. So I look at the four aspects of bilateral relations, at the multilateral and bilateral. I look at the political, economic, social, and security. What is our overriding interest? The bigger interest is to see peace, to see that diplomatic relationships can still thrive in difficult situations. If there is no difficult situation, you don't need the foreign minister. So you need diplomacy because you want to make sure you can find, again, a balance in this thing. So because these are some of my experiences that I have related, and I just like to conclude by saying that the world order has to change if you want to infuse love and forgiveness. It means that there should be greater emphasis on international interest, the wider global interest of the whole human community, rather than looking at the national interest. National interest is just simply looking at our self-interest. And sometimes there are double standards, there are selectivity, there are hypocrisy. But the most important in love and forgiveness is that we must choose the political, community, and religious leaders who understand love and forgiveness. If the political leaders do not understand, they will instigate conflict. They will cause conflict to happen. The religious leaders must be open enough. Religious leaders must be able to engage people of different faith and different beliefs. Then we will have a better understanding between different people, different religion, different community. And finally, I would just like to quote, if we can have these 4 criteria that I mentioned yesterday, to be a leader, the political leader, you must be truthful. I think if we are not truthful, then we will not be having love and forgiveness. Because in order to have love and forgiveness, you need empathy. You need feelings. Without that empathy, you will not be able to. And you have to be trustworthy. I do not want somebody that I give the responsibility to be my leader, and then he is corrupt, he is not acting with good governance, he has no integrity, he does not champion the cause of the masses, he doesn't bring the well-being of the masses. And I think the third one is somebody that can communicate. Don't just simply leaders, government should not, in its governance, just say, follow us. You shouldn't question us. I'm saying this in the context of maybe in the US. I like the US in terms of the context of a lot of freedom. You speak your mind. There is a lot of engagement in many of us from the, I think, other parts of the world. We tend to be more, I think, there is a lot of self-constraint or constraint that we need to exercise with a lot of care. So communication is important so that people understand why certain policies are adopted. And finally, don't have knowledge without wisdom. Let us have knowledge with wisdom, inshallah. With knowledge and wisdom, we'll move forward and we'll have a better governance. And with governance, with power and authority, it has to be exercised with Rahman and Rahim. That means compassion and mercy. And that's all that I want to add to what you have already said. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
We are going to hear now from Monica Gabriela Bartosevic and Michal Lakshevich, who are coming from the Center for Thoughts of John Paul II in Warsaw. Their work is connected to Fetzer through Emilia Capraccia, that is one of the members of the FAC who is not here. She's happily expecting a baby, so we are very happy to celebrate with her. But we do recognize that there are processes that are very different. We heard two very prominent leaders before, and this is the first project that we presented. It's very person-centered. These are individual people having a position of authority, working in different countries and so on. But it really was an interview of people. Now what we are hearing is actually a treasure of a massive process that included millions of people and has been totally transforming, not just for Poland, but for the world as a whole. And has a great challenge to the need for understanding. Why Solidarność happened? How did it happen? What is the connection of Solidarność with spiritual roots and this understanding? So the team is a team of very valued researchers. We will distribute the bios, and you have some of them on the program and on the website. But I wanted to stress the courage of this research, also because of the debate that Solidarność is now creating in Poland today, and how much is connected to the idea that states are also made by ideas, by words, by how we see ourselves together. That the politics is never just a question of deal-making. So the floor is yours, Monica and Michal.
Thank you. Good morning.
Morning.
Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests. As you've heard, my name is Monica, and I'm the Treasure of Solidarity project coordinator. And this is Michal.
I'm the Deputy Director of the Center for Thought of John Paul II.
Yes, and today, this morning, we wanted to share with you our reflections on solidarity, love, and forgiveness. And our learnings and our findings are based, as you've heard, on the project Treasure of Solidarity that is implemented at the Center of the Thought for John Paul II with the generous support of the Fetzer Institute. And it may seem to you that solidarity and what we will be talking about is very far away, both in space and in time. But we hope that we will be able to show you that, in fact, solidarity and its heritage is very closely connected to what we've heard yesterday and just minutes ago. So without further ado, I give over to Michal, who will talk about what solidarity is.
Well, it seems that solidarity is far away, and from Poland it seems that also Georgetown is far away. But we organized a conference 2 weeks ago on one of the Georgetown professors commemorating the 100th anniversary of his birth. He was a witness to the atrocities of the 20th century. He was the witness of the Nazi crimes, and he wanted to convince the Allied powers, also Franklin Delano Roosevelt, that they should act and they should stop the genocide. But he failed, though for us, he is a righteous man. He is righteous among the nations, and his name is Jan Karski. So Georgetown was very close to us 2 weeks ago, and now we are here, very thankful for the invitation. I would like to speak about solidarity. As Andrea said, that solidarity was probably, arguably, one of the biggest movements in world history in 20th century. These were a movement of 10 million people, 1/3 of Polish population. They posed a challenge to the totalitarian communist regime. And under such circumstances, one free person is a miracle. So imagine 10 million people posing a threat to the power that is based on violence. That was truly a miracle. That was 10 million miracles, so to speak. And as we had that conference on Karski, I felt that we are just witnessing the witness. So we are witnesses to the witness. And so I see our project, that we are just witnesses to witnesses of solidarity. And it was one of the greatest movements in the world history. But then, surprisingly, it was forgotten. It was forgotten also by the Poles themselves. It was, I would say, too much of a miracle for us. It was too big. It was too overwhelming. So we wanted just to come to our mundane lives without thinking that there are some ideas that are calling you to action. And when we are approaching our witnesses, I was just asked by one of the wise, okay, but why do you come here 25 years after the fall of communism? So why nobody was interested in us, in millions, well, not in leaders, but in those people who really did that social movement? Why you came so late? Why we had to wait for somebody to have interest in what we did 25 years after we succeeded? So this is also a part of being witness to those witnesses. I would like, Andrea yesterday said that 7 is an important number. I don't know why you said it, but it's an important number also for us. So I would like to share now 7 findings in a more theoretical way. I hope that there will be a time for showing the trailer or the teaser of our documentary film on solidarity. But then now, in a rather more theoretical fashion, I will present 7 most important findings. So what we found together with our colleagues is that solidarity as a word, as an idea, was searching its body. And it was not that solidarity or solidarność emerged together with the social movement. It's really startling that 10 years before, for example, in Karol Wojtyła's, who then later became John Paul II, work, you will find solidarity as authentic attitude to reality. You'll find solidarity as a word, as an idea, I would say, in all most important thinkers, Polish thinkers in the 70s. So solidarity was waiting for realization. You cannot, I guess, build solidarity if you don't think about it. So this is first lesson. The second lesson is that solidarity is an idea. It's not a concept. So you cannot define it. It's rather that solidarity defines you. Solidarity calls you for action. And one of the leaders of solidarity, spiritual leaders, Father Tischner, said that you cannot define solidarity, because solidarity is transforming reality. And if something is transforming reality, it's always on the move. And the third finding is that this is an ongoing process. We cannot say we were in solidarity. There was love and forgiveness, and that's all. So it always calls you for action. And it is seen in Poland that we were the biggest social movement. But then now we are a fragmented society with lots of symbolic violence, but also quite physical violence. So solidarity is something that's ongoing, and you have to search for solidarity everywhere, also in your past, because then you can find the roots of what's going on here and now. Solidarity was a part of a semantic revolution that happened in Poland. And that semantic revolution was based on changes of meaning of words. So old words disappeared. There was a word, a very pejorative word for workers, robol in Polish, and that word disappeared because workers became not robols, but workers. They, being a part of the solidarity movement, they found their own dignity. So the old pejorative word just disappeared. They became citizens. New words came to the fore. Solidarność is one of them. Old words changed their meaning, and new words articulated new meanings. The meaning of solidarity was discovered, and this is the next finding, both by religious as well as secular or even anti-religious thinkers. It really startled me that they spoke the same language. Be it liberals or Catholics, they would see solidarity as something that is of spiritual origins. And solidarity was a spiritual concept, that's for sure. I will come back to that. But because it was a spiritual concept, people could gather around that concept, and then it had an impact on the political sphere. It had the biggest impact on the political sphere in that part of Europe, and it means also in that part of the world. What kind of words they were? Good and evil was discovered. Conscience was discovered. Dialogue was discovered. Ethos, giving witness was discovered. Revolution was discovered. But also the meanings of those words were changed. So it's not just a good and evil, it's a common good. And also, if one can say common evil, so if there is evil in that world, it is evil that we are all responsible for. So we have to amend the evil that there is in the world. There is conscience, but conscience is connected with the truth. It's not some arbitrary power, subjective power. It's connected with the truth. There's dialogue, but the dialogue is in truth in solidarity. We don't pursue dialogue for dialogue's sake. If we are giving witness, we are giving witness as far as for martyrdom. And if we are speaking of revolution, this is a revolution of the spirit. So that was one of the most common description of solidarity, that was revolution of the spirit. And with those 7 findings and 7 words are connected 7 habits of highly effective revolutionaries.
This is a very American way.
But these are actually old habits. Moderation. Moderation is the first habit in solidarity that would say that we are radically moderated. That will be something like extremism and moderation. That we are radical in our moderation and moderated in our radicalism. That was a common saying. There was courage, and you had to be courageous being confronted with the authoritarian regime. And they craved for justice. And there was lots of prudence. They didn't fight with weapons, they fought with words. So there was lots of prudence in solidarity. So four habits of effective revolutionaries, and 3 more. There was hope, and everybody would speak about hope. Because we were in a hopeless situation, we needed hope to change the hopeless situation. We also needed faith, and it was not only faith in somebody else, it was not only faith in our fellow citizens, but it was also faith in God, and it was revival of religion in Poland. And last but not least, the 7th habit is charity, and of these, charity is the biggest. Monica.
Traditionally, solidarity was equated with love, and more specifically with social love. But what does it mean really? It means 3 main things. The first, that solidarity was not built on hatred. The second, that solidarity means together with another person. And the third one, that solidarity manifests itself the best through actions and in action. And these three concepts I wanted to elaborate upon in more details. So, through solidarity, abolishes the foundations of hatred, abolishes egoism, abolishes injustice. But what does it mean that solidarity is free of hatred? I'll give you a very pragmatic example. So the Workers' Defense Committee members, they knew very well that in their answer to communist authorities, to the beatings, to the provocations, to the invigilations, to the constant smearing in the media via propaganda, they cannot answer to those with hatred, because if they do so, they lose immediately. So the beginnings were that we do not answer with the same coin. But then the development of solidarity and the genuine original contribution was that not only we do not answer hatred for hatred, but we answer with love for the hatred. And the exemplar of love, and the one who actually coined this motto that became the motto of solidarity, you conquer evil with goodness, was Father Jerzy Popiełuszko. He was a Catholic priest. He was also a chaplain of solidarity. He was a face of solidarity. He was the one who would go to the workers, to the shipyards, to the huge industrial plants, who would remind the very material-oriented communist regime that the spiritual is there, that it is present, and that perhaps it's invisible, but it's very strong. He was the witness to this love. What does it mean that he was a witness? It means that he carried this power of love until the very last day of his life. If Father Popiełuszko was alive today, he would have been 67. He was murdered by the communist regime. He was beaten and he was drowned. And he was also beatified recently by the Catholic Church. What does it mean? It means that the Catholic Church attested that his virtues, including love, were heroic. What does it mean that they were heroic? It means that those who were checking the virtuous life of Father Popiełuszko went to his murderers and asked them, so when you were beating him, when you were murdering him, did he utter one word of anger? Was he in despair? Was he hating you? Did he give any sign betraying that he doesn't love you? And the answer from the murderers was no. No, there wasn't a single word, and there wasn't a single sign. And these were people who were laughing when there was a trial. They were laughing, and they didn't have a slightest remorse for what they've done. So this is a powerful witness of love. The second thing is, if there is no solidarity without love, it means that solidarity is a concept that opposes understanding society in terms of struggle. It's not we or us against something or against someone. Solidarity works according to another rule: everybody, with everybody, and for everybody. And this is a very important thing. Why? Because it also means that solidarity eschews violence. There's absolutely no violent component in solidarity. And John Paul II, he was saying that the fight, the struggle, cannot be stronger than solidarity. And it was accepted by everyone. And Father Tischner, mentioned by Michał earlier, he said, and I quote here, solidarity born from the pages of the Gospel does not need an enemy or an opponent in order to strengthen or develop. It is directed toward everybody and not against anyone. And then John Paul II, when he was talking about solidarity, he said, solidarity means one person and another. And if there is a burden, it is shared together in the community. And so never one against another, us against them, and never a burden bore by someone alone, without others helping him. And it brings us to the third point I mentioned at the beginning. It means action. It means that solidarity, where evil is conquered with goodness, it is done through bearing or joint bearing the burdens. We could see it during the so-called Solidarity Carnival. Michal was saying 10 millions of people together, discovering the small deeds of goodness, the small acts of love, and how miraculously they can transform a whole society. It was absolutely unbelievable. You didn't have to have the media, you didn't have to have the propaganda. Solidarity was the propaganda on its own. People could see how it changes the life of the whole society. You were going along the street. Transport was non-existent during the strikes. People would stop by in their cars and they would be saying, well, hello, do you need a lift? I can help you with this or that. Neighbors were discovering each other once again. Thousands and thousands of small examples of love in daily life. Because when you love another person, it means that you take responsibility for this person. It means that you are responsible for this person's good. It means that you take the responsibility for common good. Again, this is how John Paul II, and I quote here, said, solidarity opened the gates to freedom in the states enslaved by totalitarianism. It brought down the Berlin Wall and helped to unite divided Europe. And this is how this love through solidarity manifested itself in governance. He said in Gdańsk, I heard from you there is no freedom without solidarity. And today we need to say there is no solidarity without love. There is no happiness, there is no future of the man and the whole nation without this love. Love that serves and is ready and generous to give, is sensitive towards the suffering of the other, doesn't look for its own good, but seeks the good of the other. Love that forgives, but not forgets. And thus, this love, especially in action and through actions, is an indivisible component of genuine solidarity, and one cannot exist without the other.
Well, I think that when solidarity workers would listen to us, I think that we would be too pompous for them, because they would say, we are just doing our own thing. We are doing just the right thing. We have to deal with our things. And it was not only love that was all around. For example, during the shipyard strikes in Gdańsk, there was no alcohol, because alcohol was the way people escaped reality, especially in Poland. It was one of the biggest sources of revenue for the state. And they stopped drinking alcohol. So it was really like a small thing, but then they could overcome and they could build a moral community. And I will finish by saying that it was also a very big experience for us and discovery that solidarity is an ongoing process, and there is an ongoing process of forgiveness. We were speaking with our colleagues about 3 waves of solidarity that happened in Poland. The first was anti-political. So when opposition was established, they had to come from different poles of political spectrum. And to fight against the communism, they had to forget they come from different political spheres. So it was anti-political mobilization based on forgiveness. In 1989, when the state was established, we had political forgiveness. So there was amnesia that the sins, the past sins, were forgotten. And I would say that there was dialogue without forgiveness. And before, there was forgiveness that led to political dialogue. In 1989, there was dialogue without forgiveness. So it left wounds in our society. And now when we were approaching the witnesses of solidarity, they were wounded, and they craved also for forgiveness. But it was, for me, an apolitical wave of forgiveness. It was not against the state, it was not for the state, it was just parallel to the state. It was privatized, spontaneous, it was contingent upon circumstances, but at the same time it was very deep. So there was no plan of forgiveness, but there was a need for forgiveness. It was then a very, very deep way of forgiveness. You had to forgive people who killed your father. You had to forgive people who made your kid mentally sick. You had to forgive your friend who then turned out to be a Secret Service agent. And we are showing it in our documentary film, that apolitical wave of forgiveness. And the goal of our project is to show that what's apolitical should become political, as it was political in Solidarity times.
So Solidarity was the force that changed the face of the whole world. And if we want to witness today global changes in our present situation, political situation, it means that we need global solidarity. And so we hope that we manage to convince you that solidarity is not only a lesson from history, but more so a homework for us yet to be done. Thank you.
That Borislav Manojlović will present now, and the floor is yours.
So I would like to start with expressing my appreciation and gratitude for being able to participate and contribute to the projects on love and forgiveness in governance as a research director. So it was a pleasure to work with Alvi and Ed on two projects, on Islamic leaders and forgiveness, and forgiving prisoners. I think that we do have a responsibility for sharing stories. And Fetzer has enabled us to share some very important stories. From the leaders of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation to the American civil rights activists such as John Lewis, to a Palestinian father who lost his daughter, Bassam Maramin. All of these stories can be found on our website. And we've been able to create a constituency with more than 500 members on Facebook, numerous posts, numerous comments to our blogs, to our essays, to the profiles. It is all on our Seton Hall website as well as on the Fetzer website. And so we also organize a lot of interesting events and panels that were well attended, meaningful discussions around the topics of love and forgiveness in governance. For me personally, it was a pleasure and a reward that these projects that I worked on attracted many students from Seton Hall who actually came to me and volunteered their time to work on these projects, and it in a way shows the importance and power of this topic. We also produced wonderful essays on the topic of forgiveness. We had seminars, and I have a feeling that we grew into a movement. And why? Why did all this happen? I think it's because we were enabled and we were able to focus on some fundamental questions on what it means to forgive, what it means to love, to be human, to be free, which led to this outburst of creativity and engagement. So let me speak briefly about certain lessons that we learned from the projects we worked on. First is that love and forgiveness is a choice. So it's not necessarily a personality trait or a sentiment that one is simply born with or born without. It is something that a person chooses to develop over time. It is a choice that is made each and every day, in each and every situation that we find ourselves in. As Martin Luther King Jr. said, forgiveness is not an occasional act. It is a constant attitude. Majority of exemplars talk about spirituality, which enable their inner growth and introspection. Many looked for answers in religion, while the others sought clarity in philosophy of nonviolence. And an important component that enabled this spiritual growth was their reflection about the others, about the people who wronged them or who wronged their communities in some way. With time, this reflection about the others counteracted ill feelings and bitterness. So it was practice of forgiveness that enabled expansion of consciousness that transformed these exemplars. Another important thing is that all of them dealt with the contentious past and wrongs. And according to the exemplars, this is not a matter of someone having an answer, but someone asking a question. So in order to prevent these injustices in the future, majority of exemplars take reflection and learning from the past actions very seriously. So many of them discuss the importance of education and studying the work of love and forgiveness. Cesar Chavez, for example, said, "You cannot uneducate the person who learned to read. Love and forgiveness take work. It is not only physical work, but also mental, emotional work, and cultivating the emotional and mental ability to love and forgive." The call for forgiveness is seen as a way to break ties that bind us to the other's violence, to our neighbor's aggression, enmity, envy. Through forgiveness that implies acceptance of difference, we may imagine and actualize the greatest power, which is love. And love enables people to care for the others, just because they love them as part of their extended selves and as a humanity on the whole. Forgiveness rooted in care for others, even the enemy, constitutes this much-needed shift in discourse that informed exemplars' action in their context, in their situations. Whether through teaching, through writing, or through example, each of these exemplars, each of these leaders reached out to the others and encouraged them to join the path of love and forgiveness. So Nelson Mandela, for example, said, "What counts in life is not the mere fact that we have lived. It is what difference we have made to the lives of others that will determine the significance of the life we lead." Each of our exemplars touch the lives of those around them, be it within their communities, their nation, or the whole world. Sanana Guzmão, for example, said, "Forgiveness is a kind of deep courage, the way to live in peace." Jose Ramos Horta said that, "Just remember that violence leads you nowhere. We have to learn not to be violent if you want to have power. Compassion, forgiveness, generosity, humility, tolerance are real power." And I would finish with this thought. Forgiveness is a process of growth in which establishing a relationship with the other, with those that wronged us, has a meaning. It is a glimpse of the eternal law and divine, whose purpose is reestablishing order and balance in the world. So I would finish with that. Thank you.
So, question, comments, we have a mic. So please speak in the mic because all things are recorded and so we need to have your voice. And please introduce yourself when you are asking your question. So, please.
Yeah, hi, Carolyn Brown from the Fetzer Institute. And a number of you talked about, especially in the social context, forgiveness. But I heard less about how that operates with accountability. And so I heard forgiveness and amnesia in Poland. And I was wondering what happened to truth and reconciliation.
Very good. Who wants to take this one? Who wants to respond?
I can respond. Well, exactly. So this is a very good question. What happened with responsibility? In one of Wojtyła's works, he writes in the title about love and responsibility. So we had love without responsibility after 1989. And those people whom we interviewed, they just felt alienated by their colleagues who went to power, and they had their own political deal during the roundtable with the former communists. And then there was a community between former communists and leaders of the Solidarity movement, but the cost was that they had to forget about the spiritual roots of solidarity. So they exchanged the spirit of solidarity with just solidarity with the other without that spiritual roots. And then it's really shocking, when you speak with those people, and they one of them, for example, said that he had one dream. When the communism ends, because it had to finish somehow, he and his friends will march throughout Warsaw. But they will not march, but they didn't march, and that they will not march in future. And for him, it was, there was no feeling of victory, actually. And I think that it's our job to, and I think also about our project in this way, that we can show that suffering that accompanied Polish transition, that what I called dialogue without forgiveness, so dialogue just based on amnesia, and approach the leaders, former leaders of the Solidarity movement, who are now in the leading position in European sphere, and to remind them about it. And then I hope that they will answer your question, what about accountability?
Any other comments? Other questions? Comments? Please.
Okay, my name is Ernest. I'm a student of George Mason University. I'm one of the students that work with Borislava on the project. And it is very interesting to work on this project for the past 2 years. But the question I have is for Arwi Shabab. And the question is, do we have maybe female exemplars of love and forgiveness? Because having worked with Borislava on the project, I discovered that most of the exemplars we have are all males from the Islamic countries. Do we have females? Then secondly, on the second project on forgiving prisoners, we also discovered that most of the exemplars are all male exemplars. So do we have females that have been to prison, which their prisons, maybe life, change the way they think about leadership? Because I think that we shouldn't just be a kind of male focus, but also look at the females as well.
Dr. Shihab.
Yes. Actually, I wish I could have one or two females, but it's not easy to get appointments from female with such a short period of time of the task. I had been assigned for, I think, 8 months, and unfortunately, I did not recall any of my counterpart from OIC, Minister of Foreign Affairs, a female Minister of Foreign Affairs. If I could have the opportunity, it could be significant to interview Madeleine Albright, but since she is not from OIC countries, so then, because I have good contact with Madeleine Albright, she was my counterpart during the time when I was foreign minister, but hopefully next time we will interview female.
Very good.
The second part of the question, I think it's related to my field, to what I'm doing.
And Pico is presenting later on the prisoners project.
On the prison project. And I'm sharing this similar sympathy, sentiment, of Dr. Awal Shihab. I wish we have female prisoners.
Well, we hope that
that we can interview. And had Madame Albright been in prison at one point, probably I would have interviewed her. Okay.
I think that there is certainly a sociological element. There are not, the assignment that was given to Dr. Shihab was to interview people with authority, people in power, ministers kind of people. And the number of female is actually very small. You actually have a few presidents and leaders, female leaders in Muslim countries. You know, you never had a female president of the United States so far. And you clearly had, you know, major female leaders, Bangladesh and many others.
Yeah, I just want to make a final statement. I don't want you to think that we're discriminating against female, okay, in our research.
Yeah, that was clear. That is not a question of the design of but the reality is that the number of female is not that common. Borislav and then Thais.
Yeah, actually, we have been trying to interview Aung San Suu Kyi from Myanmar. But apparently she was so busy to receive us to get interview. And I did not have any prior contact with her, except knowing her by name, but not like all the 8 interviewees where they were with me together in one stage or another. So it's easier to find and to get appointments with them.
Borislav and then Thais.
I wanted just to add to Alvy's comment that we do have Aung San Suu Kyi profile on our website, and we did research on her despite not interviewing her.
Yes,
so.
okay, that's fine.
Thais.
Yes, first of all, I want to congratulate the panel. It is so nice to see the projects that we discussed in our FAC meetings just coming to life, and you presented them with passion and with a lot of insights, so it was very nice. But my questions goes to Monica and Mikhail, because I think, you know, what you said that about the kind of the memory and how the movement of Solidarność, which belongs to my time. I remember how important it is, but it has been forgotten. And my question is for the new generations, just as you distill so important qualities, the discipline and the effort and the solidarity itself, how is it being translated and part of the education of the new generations in your country?
It's one of the main challenges that actually belongs to the project, the Treasure of Solidarity project. What we want to reinforce is the feeling that solidarity is not a dead thing that you just put into museum and for the display, and that's it. What we want to show to the young, and this is one of the components of the project, it's that it's a very much alive thing, that you need to kind of water it and it will flower and bloom again and it will bear fruit. And the good thing is that the youth knows it. They know that they need solidarity. They look at their parents and they're kind of jealous and they envy this wonderful energy that you were talking about yesterday that transforms social life, reality, political life. And they are very much aware that in the present situation we still need this energy and this transformation to come. So we hope that we will be able to start this solidarity revival.
So we are very grateful. We had a great panel and almost on time. So we are really impressed. But before we close the panel, we would like you to pay attention to your evaluation sheets. And I would like somebody to give the evaluation even to the panelists so that they can play with us and give us feedback. They are participating there. We are all together. And just explain to us, if you enjoyed the panel, if you enjoyed it very much, give us a 7, or give yourself a 7, or give the panelists a 7. Or if you didn't enjoy it at all, just give us a 1. And then the second point about learning, it's very important for us to learn. And so if you feel that you learned something, give us a 7. If you didn't learn anything, give us a 1. But then in a sentence or two, write a comment that you feel could help us to grow further. What are you taking away? What are you feeling that we should look into? For example, this issue about women's and this capacity for us to move forward. So these are very important feedback processes for us because we want to have everybody's voice heard and keep learning.